Catherine Delahunty.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. He mihi nui ki te tangata whenua o Te Arawa. Nā iwi, Ngātirangi ao rere, Ngātirangi wewehi and Tapueka, tēnā koutou. It is a humble moment to be able to speak in the presence of the people for whom this bill is so important. I'd also like to acknowledge the co-leader of the Māori Party, Te Ora Whavo, and his connection to this bill and his connection to the rohe, and therefore his particular contribution to our House as a proud member of Te Arawa. I'd like to also acknowledge our new member, Mika Whaitiri and Ngāti Kahanunu, tēnā koe. It's great to have you on board. Mr Speaker, this bill is an omnibus measure which covers aspects of 3 Te Arawa iwi claims, and it gives effects to the deed of settlement that the Crown has negotiated. And this negotiation includes some very significant issues that others have touched upon. My own personal connection to this is that my grandfather bought land on the lake side of Rotorua in the 1930s, and I have to say, to the shame of my family, that nobody in my family at the time or since until the recent years would have any concept of what had happened to the land and the whenua, to the area, to the rohe, and to the iwi of the area. Nobody in their enjoyment of the magical wonderland and playground, which is Rotorua, had any concept of whose toes had been stamped on, whose fingernails perhaps had been ripped out in the colonisation of the area. Places such as Tikitere and Hamurana Springs, which are iconic and magical, and where many of us enjoyed as manuhiri our childhoods, the exquisite lakes such as Okataina, and those that were exquisite but are now deeply polluted by years of bad farming practice, sewage disposal, the PCP contamination from the Waipa Lake, Waipa sawmill, and erosion. All of those things have been a heavy weight upon tangata whenua, but many others have come and gone and ignored or been unaware of those very important rights and relationships that have been trampled on. So it is an important day, a beginning at least, towards healing some of those issues. The 3 iwi from the eastern side of the lakes and out to the coast have waited a very long time for redress, and it is really important. The Crown apology is a really important part of this bill. The apology is for the effect of warfare and land theft, which the iwi did not seek, and the loss of tribal authority, life, land and resources, social structures, etc. And very importantly, the ability to exercise customary rights and responsibilities. And as others have said, the native land laws in particular, Mr Speaker, were and I believe still are devastating in their ability to alienate, and it's appropriate that the Crown acknowledges and apologises for the effects of these laws on hapu and whānau. And let's make sure that the Native Land Court, now allegedly reformed, and other instruments do not continue, which is why the Green Party doesn't believe in full and final settlement, because we don't think the rest of the legislative framework of this country supports justice yet. So we believe that tangata whenua must always have the right to claim and to speak out on these issues. All of these words do not adequately convey the multi-layered nightmare of colonisation. I just want to speak about one aspect of the loss of access to customary rights and responsibilities, because the lakes, rivers and hot springs of the rohe are legendary and magnificent taonga, and once, although contaminated in many instances, once must have been the most productive source of kai, of energy and of mana. And the loss is not only the physical access to these resources, but to the history of contamination, which I know these iwis have fought very, very, in a very steadfast manner. Kaituna, for example, under the Tapueka settlement, Kaituna is a legendary name for the wrong reasons as well as for the right reasons. And Kaituna, I can only imagine the abundance of kai, the abundance of tuna that were once in that river, and what has been done to that river is inexcusable and unforgettable. And let us hope that some of the mechanisms of this bill will start to restore it. For Ngāti Rangi Te Aorere, there's specific cultural address in terms of Waiohea stream, which is vested in the trustees. There's commercial redress, and it is an advancement of agreements were set out in 1993. And I hope that for those who've worked so hard since 1993, this feels like a really big milestone and major progress for them. Ngāti Rangiwewe equally marginalised totally through the war and raupatu in the Tauranga area. The bill does clarify issues around their settlement in relation to fisheries protocol and creates joint management structures for some sites, as well as a very strong conservation-related rights, which are important. Cultural harvest is an integral part of Te Treaty of Waitangi and was never, ever given up by many people. I want to talk briefly about co-governance as well as in relation to Tapuika, because they established Te Maru o Kaitona, the Kaitona River Authority, as a permanent joint committee for the restoration, protection and enhancement of that awa. And this is a number of iwi, including the Tapuika Iwi Authority and the local authorities. And it will be vital for this group to work, vital for the kaupapa of restoring the kaitona and providing for the well-being of the communities with their deep whakapapa and kaitiaki connections to this long-abused and much-treasured waterway. Mr. Speaker, it must always be acknowledged that co-governance is not Article 2. It is not tino rangatiratanga. It is a response to the current reality. And it is generously agreed upon by mana whenua in the spirit of relationship building. My honourable colleague Tau Henry talked about co-governance in the previous speech this morning as a kind of unique mechanism in Aotearoa. It's actually a global model, and it has mixed success. Co-governance is not the sovereignty of tangata whenua, and it is what is possible in the current situation and therefore should be welcomed and celebrated. But it is, if you look at Sami, if you look at Arctic, if you look at Australia and the Indigenous people there are real challenges in co-governance in terms of two very different worldviews sitting at the table and doing what they need to do, which is negotiate. And there are real issues of power. And if you talk to any of the Aboriginal people from Central Australia and you talk to some of the Arctic Indigenous people, the challenges are very important, but they are very profound. So we can't romanticise co-governance as much as we celebrate it. We have to recognise that it's always about power. It's always about power, and it's very important that we recognise the challenges within it, because we need to be at the table, but that's not Article 2. That's just a reality that we need to deal with, and it's a good reality. This omnibus bill has a number of technical provisions to clarify the unfinished business for these iwi who've come together to progress justice with the Crown, and well done for that. And like all such legislation, it includes some recognition of rights to very sacred places and lost resources. It provides some opportunities for forest and fisheries ownership and some shared governance over bodies of important rivers and sites. But reading the bills always gives us a sense, for me as a Pākehā and for many of mine, how little we really know about the original price that was paid and how hard the journey has been to this point. And I think it's very important that we, with humility, those of us who do not come from this te arawa and have enjoyed that rohi, recognise what we do not know, what we haven't experienced, and what is still unseen and through the process. As always, the Green Party is cognisant of the silent side whereby other citizens who have enjoyed this magic are not participating and barely know how important this day is in terms of these three iwi. The depressing emails I received claiming that the treaty gravy claim provides Māori with so many privileges just shows the depths of ignorance and the gaps. And so I welcome any settlement bill that will provide historical background, and that's one of the most beneficial things about the bills is the stories told. But we need to get those stories again out to the people who think that Rotorua is a tourist mecca rather than the rohi of the important Te Arawa tribes. So I still receive so much in my inbox that should not be there. And I do hope that through this process and this very important bill and the other bills that we're happy to support today, that there will be more information, more education and more positive challenge to the people who still don't understand what really goes on. Obviously, these iwi are legendary for their extraordinary hospitality, their extraordinary generosity and their extraordinary culture. People come to enjoy that culture and pay for that privilege, enjoy it from all around the world. But it is here, in Aotearoa, that the challenge must go out to my own culture and tauiwi katoa. We need to learn the history. We need to own the past. We need to recognise our present privilege, and we need to stand up for a continuing dialogue on the Treaty of Waitangi so that these settlements will have the full meaning that they should have. Kia ora tātou.
I call Claudette Hauiti.